What will happen if, at the very bottom of the ocean, specifically in Challenger Deep, the deepest point on Earth, a perfectly round portal about 20 meters wide suddenly opened? How fast would the oceans drain, and what changes would Earth experience along the way? First, let's clear up something important. Based on some rough physics estimates, even if a massive object, say an aircraft carrier, fell down and blocked the opening, the enormous pressure at that depth would easily crush it and force it straight through the portal. No clogging. Problem solved. Now, the obvious follow-up question: where does the portal lead? Let's make things interesting and place the exit right above the Mars Curiosity rover. That way, Mars would finally get undeniable proof of liquid water flowing across its surface. So what happens back on Earth when the portal opens? Surprisingly, almost nothing at first. Even with an opening wider than a basketball court and water rushing through at extreme speeds, the oceans are so vast that draining them would take hundreds of thousands of years. Sea levels would drop by less than a centimeter per day. There wouldn't even be a dramatic whirlpool on the surface. The portal is far too deep and far too small relative to the ocean. But let's imagine we accelerate the process by adding more portals, or making them much larger. Here's what the world looks like at the beginning, and here's the map after sea levels fall by 50 meters. At first glance, not much changes, but several islands are now connected to nearby continents. Great Britain links to Europe, Sri Lanka to India, and parts of Southeast Asia merge into a single landmass. After thousands of years spent holding back the sea, the Netherlands finally finds itself completely dry. Ironically, many of its famous dikes would now trap water inside instead of keeping it out. As experts in land reclamation, the Dutch could now shift their focus from defense to expansion, colonizing newly exposed seabed. When sea level drops by 100 meters, the Black Sea becomes isolated and stops draining altogether. As water continues to fall, more ocean basins lose their connection to the main drain in the Pacific. Some channels might erode deeper and drain longer, but most basins would eventually become landlocked and stabilize. At a 200-meter drop, the world map starts to look strange. New islands appear. Indonesia turns into a massive continent, and the Netherlands somehow ends up dominating much of Europe. At 500 meters, Japan transforms into a land bridge connecting Korea and Russia. New Zealand gains additional islands, while Dutch territory continues creeping northward. Once the upper kilometer of ocean water is gone, the Arctic Ocean becomes isolated and stops draining. New Zealand, fittingly named after a Dutch province, keeps expanding at an impressive rate. Eventually, settlers from the Old Zealand cross a land bridge into North America. 2-kilometer sea level drop, islands appear everywhere. The Caribbean Sea and the Gulf of Mexico lose their connection to the Atlantic. At this point, even New Zealand seems unsure what shape it's supposed to be taking. At 3 kilometers down, peaks of the mid-ocean ridge, the largest mountain range on Earth, rise above the surface, revealing vast, rugged new continents just waiting for Dutch engineers. By 5 kilometers, most major oceans are fully disconnected and can no longer drain. The exact size and placement of inland seas is difficult to predict, but by now, New Zealand and Old Zealand are almost certainly reunited. When the draining finally stops, a surprising amount of water still remains, mostly in shallow seas with a few deep trenches reaching 4 or 5 kilometers. Removing so much ocean water would completely reshape Earth's climate and ecosystems. At the very least, it would trigger a massive collapse of the biosphere and cause extinctions on a global scale. Still, while unlikely, it's not impossible that humanity could survive. After all, if there's one thing history has shown us, it's that the Dutch are very good at engineering their way out of disasters.